We will post the recording on the website that we use for the program here. We're a little behind with the holiday, so we didn't get the one on the 16th up there yet, but we'll get that one up and the one from today up this week, and again, share it with everybody who registered for the series. And there we go, there's the link. And we'll also be sending out a survey just asking about your thoughts about this series of webinars and meetings of the Faculty Development Community of Practice. They've been pretty successful. I was just mentioning to Eleanor and Nancy, we've had typically about 30 people attend. I imagine we'll get close to that today as folks kind of trickle in this morning. And so, I think we'll do more of them in the spring. I just would like to get some feedback first before we schedule those. So please fill out that survey. Let us know. I'll be asking things like, what you thought about the format, the topics, and, the length of time, the time they're scheduled, all that kind of stuff. So definitely want to hear your thoughts about these. Today, we're going to move a little bit outside of the format that we've done. So we've been doing them with a half-hour presentations and a half an hour of sort of Q&A and open discussion. Today, we had two proposals for presentations that related to supporting adjuncts on campuses. And so it kind of worked out with the number of people who asked to present and the number of sessions we had that I suggested to Nancy and Eleanor that they present together, so it's a similar topic. And I know they've been able to touch base before the meeting today to talk about what they're doing at their respective campuses, Rockland and FIT, to support adjuncts. I know a lot of you do that in your campuses, and I know that it's not always easy to do that work because adjuncts are a very diverse population of faculty on your campus, right? They come from various backgrounds, some from industry, some, teaching 5 classes a week, or fresh out of grad school, or who are working towards a tenure track position. So a one size fits all approach doesn't always work with adjuncts. So I thought this would be a good way to wrap up the semester and these meetings. And so I believe Eleanor is going to go first, and then Nancy's going to talk for 20 minutes. And then the last 20 minutes, we'll do Q&A and open discussion. So I'm going to stop my video and turn it over to Eleanor.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Price, for giving Professor Nancy Rosen and myself and everyone here this opportunity. We're really excited to share our insights with you on this hot topic. I think it's very hot, adjunct leadership development. I think adjunct leadership development may sound like an oxymoron. We often think of adjuncts as leaders in their area of expertise or subject matter, but typically, I think we don't think of adjuncts in the sense of career, of joining a career advancement pipeline at their campus and moving into full-time faculty positions, or even into high-level leadership posts. But there are exceptions to this way of thinking at SUNY, and that's why Nancy and myself will be talking about what we're doing at Rockland and FIT. We hope by the end of today's session, we will address with you how your SUNY campus, and we hope SUNY at large will provide the kind of support adjunct faculty need with respect to leadership development. Professor, I'll just be sharing my slides in a few minutes, but I just want to give you some background information. Professor Rosen at SUNY and myself at FIT will describe how we are developing adjunct leaders on our campuses. And we hope that we'll have time. We're certainly going to make time for the end of the session where you can share your experiences, your comments, your recommendations on this very important topic. We're interested in learning from you to find out your thoughts on whether leadership development for adjuncts exists at your campus, and to what extent you believe SUNY should be devoting their efforts toward professional and career development for adjuncts. In my experience, I've heard a few cases where part-time and contingent faculty become full-time tenured position, become or gain a tenured position, or they stay active in campus shared governance, serve on curriculum and other ad hoc committees where they can actually gain institutional knowledge. I think this situation is changing right now. I believe that we're at the cusp, a state of transition for adjuncts and the potential for them to develop as future leaders at SUNY. I'd like to first acknowledge SUNY and its policies that have really begun to cultivate the seeds for this change. One of them being Dr. Chris's program in professional development, and also the SAIL Institute, the Institute for Strategic, Academic, and Innovative Leadership. So at FIT, I've been very fortunate to apply my knowledge and experience as a leader and an innovator in my field of dance, movement, psychotherapy, and dance as a performing art. I have 40+ years experience as an adjunct. It's amazing to think about it when I reflect back on when I started. I started in private colleges teaching, and then I moved on to CUNY, several CUNY colleges in New York City, and now in the past 20 years I've been at FIT, and it's been great. I could tell you I'm a certain percentage of adjuncts. I wouldn't say I'm your typical adjunct where adjuncts move from one college to another, and they kind of juggle between part-time positions to make up a full-time career in teaching. I've been teaching part-time, and while I've been managing full-time employment in the public sector for the city of New York, I've been in positions of executive level positions, and I started new programs from scratch. Most civil servants in New York City, they have to match their skills to the position. In my case, I managed to custom design my own responsibilities to match the demands of positions that I created based on a widespread need in city government. Examples are creative arts therapy programs I started, professional development programs for managers all over the city. We started a citywide managerial and professional development for all levels of managers. And I started a language access program, which really became like the premier program for language access across all the city agencies. And I've been so fortunate to have that steady income and security while teaching at FIT. At FIT, I've been blessed as an adjunct because FIT, through its Center for Excellence in Teaching, has and continues to give the kind of support needed for adjuncts to develop their teaching skills, right? And these programs are custom designed by FIT for the faculty. As far as leadership development, FIT refers us to SUNY programs, like the one we're in right now, or the ones that are offered through the SAIL Institute. I think that there's a great need for more focused and localized types of training and development, leadership development for adjuncts at the campus level, so that adjuncts can gain that institutionalized knowledge of their particular campus. So about 10 years ago, just a little bit more background about myself, I applied for a position as chair of our program at FIT. And it was really only one of 2 full-time positions in the department. I was second on the short list, but not appointed for the position. And I really wanted a full-time position at FIT. I haven't been able to get that full-time, and that's okay. What I did was I just continued my teaching and got very much involved in shared governance and worked on committees like the Diversity Council. I worked on grants. I really put in more time, more energy, more dedicated effort toward my work at FIT beyond the classroom. And recently I've been on the Faculty Senate Committee, which has been a really eye-opening experience for me. But I'm only one. I'm one adjunct of a group of, say, 12 people on the Faculty Senate Executive Committee. And I feel there's a need for more involvement for adjuncts in shared governance. The reason, as we all realize, is that adjuncts don't get paid for this extra involvement, where they can gain institutionalized knowledge, and they really do it, as I do it as a volunteer. I think there's room for change in that area, but even if there were, I think that there should be some stipends offered for adjuncts to get involved. And Nancy is going to talk about that when she describes the Rockland program for adjuncts. I think that's really important to have financial incentives for adjuncts to get involved in the institution and to be more included in decisions that affect the overall academic programs. I just want to go back 2 years since the pandemic started, because it really was very enlightening for me. I took a really closer look at what an adjunct faculty goes through. As I said before, I'm not your typical adjunct because I have always had full-time employment. I got really close to one of my faculty members who described to me what it's like to move from one college to another. She teaches at three different colleges in New York City as an adjunct. And I was helping her with technology and, going through this huge learning curve to as we all did, right? We had to adapt to teaching with technology. And I really got a really good sense of what it's like to be they call it freeway flyer, moving from one college to another, teaching as an adjunct. Also, what was enlightening for me was to participate in the leadership program at the Sale Institute. I was asked to, after going through a program in leadership through SAIL, I was asked to lead a breakout session for the Chairs Academy that was hosted by SAIL. And the chairs of many of the people in the group, we did a breakout session, and I joined a dean from Empire State College, Dr. Angelini. And we talked to the chairs about supporting adjuncts. And we didn't have much time. We just touched the surface. But they said that most adjuncts, it was just confirmed, most adjuncts do not really get involved in the institution because they are focused on their teaching, and they don't have the time, even the time to work with students, write recommendations or get to know what the college is all about, where they're teaching. So that, and we just started the discussion, how can chairs support adjuncts? I think there's a lot of room, a lot of work that needs to be done in that area to support deans, to support chairs, and all the administration in the college at SUNY for adjunct leadership development. As I mentioned before, I think stipends are very important to induce and support adjuncts in their participation in the college. But as I said, I really am grateful to the CET at FIT for supporting adjuncts. I think that there's a lot more work to be done. I was nominated to serve on the executive committee, and I'm only one adjunct. I feel obligated to be the voice for many adjuncts. And I think that we can really, as a group, perhaps start a network of adjunct leadership development, much like is being done for well, there's a faculty advancement network, a new consortium for colleges and universities that are research oriented, and they promote mentoring. They have toolkits on how to develop leaders, and that is for full-time, right? Full-time faculty. I think that we could perhaps use them as a model for what we can do for adjuncts. Yeah. So I'd like to just now switch over to my slides quickly. I think I have like 5 more minutes, and then I'm going to hand it over to Nancy. So let me just go. Oh, I'm going to go to my slides here.
Yep, 5 minutes exactly, Eleanor.
Yes. So I'm just going to quickly go through these slides, and I'm hoping that Chris, maybe these slides are something that can be shared with the group, because what I have here is information on what the status is for adjuncts and how it's changing. Something that I also learned by joining that leadership program at the Sale Institute.
You go play from the beginning so we see it full screen, please.
Okay, let's start from the beginning. There.
Thank you.
So our workforce is changing, and there's definite need for leadership development for adjuncts. This is a quote from Kiernan Matthews, as I mentioned, from the Faculty Advancement Network, a consortium that we might use as a model for adjunct leadership development at SUNY. I'm just going to go through these quickly. This was an article that was shared with me, or for me, by the SAIL director, Carolyn Matisse. Before that program, I mentioned that I chaired I hosted for the chairs at the Chair Academy. Very good article on what are the issues for adjuncts: financial compensation, shared governance representation, professional development, and so forth. So this is an article it's a live link, you can access it. And these are just this is the status of adjuncts that we think we need to keep in mind when we talk about leadership development, what we might call the plight of adjuncts in the institution. This is work that was done in 1993, a book that I've been reading, but there's a lot more that's being done right now. At UCLA, they're making strides in changing the status of adjuncts through the unionized efforts. This is a provost who is also talking about leadership development for faculty, all faculty, including adjuncts. And these are resources leadership development toolkit that you might be interested in, some videos that talk about leadership development for faculty. And that's it. I wanted to give a nutshell view of what I've been doing for the past couple of years. And I hope, I hope that, it would be a good fuel for thought and discussion later on when we talk. Thank you.
Thank you, Eleanor. And if you want to share that with me, I'll make sure to get the presentation to anybody that would like.
Great. I'm going to stop sharing.
Great. And if you have questions for Eleanor, just put them in the chat and I'll make sure that, she gets them at the end after Nancy.
Okay, I'm going to stop sharing right now. Thank you so much. Okay, Nancy, I pass it over to you.
All right, thanks, Eleanor. That was great, and I appreciate you sharing all of that. Eleanor and I have had a couple of conversations even though we were putting two separate proposals together, we had some great conversations over the last couple of months talking about the plight of the adjunct, as she likes to put it. So as she mentioned, my name's Nancy Rosen. I work at SUNY Rockland Community College in Suffern, New York. I have been an adjunct for over 20 years. For the last 6 years, I was an adjunct at RCC, lucky enough to be coordinating with another position where I was able to work during the day. And in doing that, I was able to get involved with my department, which is the speech communications department, as well as get involved with the adjunct union at our school. The union is separate from the full-time union. So we had a group of people who were also involved, not only in union things, but had the opportunity to get involved in other areas of the college as well. And as of September 1st, I became a full-time faculty member, a tenure-track faculty member, which I am thrilled about. So I've been busy since September 1st. But the reason that I wanted to come and share with everybody today is because about 3 years ago or 4 years ago, we have a new president at our school, President Baston. And when the president came in, and this is pre-COVID, he came in recognizing that adjuncts are very important, particularly at our community college. We have about 300 adjuncts. It is a larger ratio than it is of full-time faculty as it is at many campuses. And he came in not just saying how much he appreciates what the adjuncts do for the college, but he recognized that there are a lot of adjuncts out there that want to be more than adjuncts. And even more importantly, he recognized that not only are there adjuncts who want to become full-time faculty members, but there are adjuncts who come with the education, the skills, the experience, and the interest to also want to go into administration. And coming in with these thoughts, he charged a committee, which I was lucky enough to be the co-chair of, to create a program to develop adjunct leadership skills for both for academic and professional development. And we ended up coming up with a program called the Academy for Academic and Professional Development. It did get put on hold a little bit because of COVID, but it really is a very unique program that the president did not forget about. And he started it up again this past March. I was lucky enough at that time, while I was still an adjunct, to become the program coordinator for this program. And the interesting part, I'm going to share my screen with you, if you don't mind just giving me 1 second, because sometimes the visual of this program is a little bit easier. The beauty of this program is the goal is not only to provide professional development coursework, but really the overall goal is to cultivate skills, knowledge, and interest for adjunct faculty who are interested and able to become full-time in higher education. And I say that because we have many adjunct faculty that are working full-time jobs that they are not going to leave, or they were former teachers and are currently collecting a pension and may not be and are not eligible to accept another full-time position. So this particular program is a selective program geared towards cultivating professional skills, knowledge, and experience for people who are interested in full-time positions in higher education. We decided to create a program for people who have already been with us for 4 semesters and plan to continue at RCC, that it's a 1-year program that requires a 2-hour time commitment, a 2-hour-a-week time commitment through the academic year. Again, for people who are interested in professional development and career growth, they will need a recommendation from an RCC full-time employee, but it is a stipend-based program with a maximum of 4 participants. That's how we decided to create the program to get us started. And I know what many people are thinking, which is, well, what's at the end of this program? And people know that this program cannot guarantee a full-time position. As all of you know, there are many different ways that adjuncts may or may not be able to join their institutions on a full-time basis. And we can't guarantee that a position will open up when they finish this program. But if a position is available in their department that they're credentialed for, we can guarantee to get them an interview for that position. And we make that very clear. But we've really done some things, or I feel that we put some things together that are really value added for both the adjuncts and the school itself. So the program is a 3-component program that follows 3 different parts or tracks, so to speak. And what I try to do is to tailor it to each participant's interests and skills. So what you're seeing on here is the 3 components of this program. Everyone in the program completes some general requisites. We do meet and greets with different departments. We participate in different RCC programs together. We give people the opportunity to build up their technology and software capabilities, which, as it turns out, the people in this year's program are pretty good at. We're going to provide information about higher education full-time hiring process. It is different than applying for jobs in the public or corporate sector. And again, the meet and greets, which give the people in the program, who we call the program participants, an opportunity to meet and get an overview of different school departments and administrators, which we have completed already for this first year's cohort. And for me, it's been really enlightening and fabulous to learn about what the different departments do. And that typically the way that it was done is something that a lot of adjuncts don't get the opportunity to do. The second part of this program is to provide each of the participants the opportunity to enhance their educational options. And this again is tailored to the participants' needs and interests. So they are able to maybe get a certificate or a micro-credential program, and several of them are doing SUNY programs right now or will be doing SUNY programs. Actually, one person on this call is one of the program participants, and he is doing one of the SUNY certificate programs. And I have another participant who will be doing the career readiness program coming up in January. And for some programs, including the SUNY Center for Professional Development Programs, we are covering the cost of those programs. So each program has an educational option that's above and beyond just signing up for workshops. And there's nothing wrong with just doing workshops, of course, but we're trying to give them the opportunity to do something a little bit bigger than that, and we'll cover the fee for it. And then the third part of this program is really one of the most innovative ones, and really came from the president, where he said, I get that there are adjuncts that don't want or would not only like to be full-time, but they come with other skills and abilities, and they might want to be in administration. And that is really a unique perspective for adjuncts. So we created 2 tracks, one for people who might want to follow a professorial track and one who might want to follow an administrative track. And when the applicants apply for the program, because as I said, it is a selective program, they indicate which track that they are looking for. And while this is not set in stone, and we've certainly had our challenges, because when the committee created all of this, it was pre-COVID. And when we brought it back, we are making our adjustments as needed to what we can offer. But the really cool part of this program is for those who want to follow the professorial track or those who want to follow an administrative track. And I am trying to work with each of the participants to give them hands-on experiences depending upon what they're looking for, what department they're in, what their interests are, what they want to follow, because even people who want to potentially become full-time have very different interests in what they would like to do and how they want to be value added to their departments. On the administrative track, and I'm going to use Professor Song, who's on the workshop with us today, as an example. He is a faculty member in the business department, but his background all comes from finance. He's been at, the big financial firms. He's done a lot in terms of financial management, came to RCC to teach in the finance department, but to teach in the business school, but would love an opportunity to be in the finance department administratively in higher education. So we've been doing very different things with his last 3 months than I have with some of with the other 3 participants who are following the professorial track. And as you can see, we have, a bullet point list, but it's really an endless list and a very varied list as to what each participant can do. And it's been fabulous in terms of what we've already done over the past 3 months, which I'll get into just briefly a little bit more. So when the president charged us with this and said, I really understand how this can be value added. And for this particular program, we do understand that it is selective. We have over 300 adjuncts, and this program is focusing on 4 of them, but we are looking to build out from this to be able to offer either more selective opportunities or build out to offer some of these opportunities to all adjuncts who want to cultivate their skills and knowledge. So the president was the one who, definitely said, well, number one, we can guarantee them an interview when it's in the right department. We can't, if you have a master's degree or a doctorate in English and a full-time position becomes available in the science department, that obviously is not going to cross. But when the position is correct, we will be able to guarantee an interview. As I said, they're getting a stipend, and as Eleanor mentioned, stipends are important to value the time, because everything adjuncts do out of the classroom is essentially voluntary. We cover the fees of the SUNY courses. We provide some great networking experiences for the adjuncts where they get involved in things that they may never have gotten involved in before. And it's a real benefit to the college, which was something that the support from the president passed down to his administration, and they have been incredibly supportive and helpful with this, because he recognized the networking opportunities that we enhance collaboration between our adjuncts and their departments from the faculty perspective and administrative perspective, give them more access to information about resources and policies, give them the opportunity to enhance their voice in different contribution in different committees and projects and departments, and then increase their potential to fill future vacancies. And I've also been very vocal, where as much as we would like to say this program will lead to full-time opportunities at RCC, as we all know, COVID has changed what is going on with full-time opportunities, and opportunities for full-time faculty in general across campuses is difficult at best. So I have really been trying to recognize that and make this a program that for the people who participate can take this anywhere. So should they see and apply for a full-time position in another institution, I want them to say, I completed the academy program and I learned this, and I'm going to be able to take this anywhere. It's not just benefiting RCC or my knowledge of RCC, it's going to benefit me to be a full-time person at any institution, either in a faculty position or potentially in an administrative position if that were to come up. So this first semester, we did our application process in the spring. Our first cohort started this fall, and it's been fabulous. We have 2 people from the from the English department who are kind of a combination of tracks because of their interest in advisement, their interest in developmental education. We have 1 person from the criminal justice department who's a completely different track. He actually is a full-time detective right now. He's been a detective for 26 years, teaching as an adjunct in criminal justice, but is looking to make that career transition to full-time. His focus is getting students involved in criminal justice, understanding what it's like. People come in and they think they can only be a police, somebody on the police force, and that is not true. So he's working from entrance to graduation, focusing on career opportunities in criminal justice. And he's the person who's going to be joining Chris's new SUNY certificate program in January for career readiness, because that's what he's focusing on within his department. And then we have 1 person who, again, as I mentioned, is on the call with us today, who is teaching in the business department as a faculty member, but is on our administrative track and has had some really interesting opportunities in the finance department, getting to know the person who is the head of the finance department and the different people in that department. And he's starting a rotation program with other departments so he can get to know what they do before we try and pick out a project that's going to be good for him to do. We've had, as I mentioned, meet and greets with different administrative departments, and just the 5 of us, the 4 participants and myself, for an hour, getting to know administration, which has been fabulous and something that a lot of adjuncts don't get to do. 2 of the adjuncts are working on these amazing grant-funded projects because the dean of their department knew that they are in the program. The deans are their mentors, and when these opportunities came about, they made sure that these 2 academy participants are on this we're on these projects and leading them as well, which is an opportunity that they may not have had in the past. Again, we're doing some career resource development as well as some different administrative meetings one-on-one with people. And we've had an interesting year because the people on our adjunct faculty board have also done a lot to try and get adjuncts involved on campus. So we've just introduced an honorarium, as Eleanor had mentioned. There are some committees that adjuncts are being encouraged to join, and as long as their dean approves it, they will get a $250 stipend per semester for their work on that committee. We've added 5. Well, we had 2 seats on Faculty Senate, and we just got approved to add 5 seats beginning this semester. So we following guided pathways, and we now have 1 representative from each of our 5 schools to represent Faculty Senate. We do try and put the word out there to offer adjuncts the opportunity to participate in different projects. Like I said, these grant-funded projects we can bring other adjuncts into. We have an adjunct newsletter that's run by our evening and weekend coordinator that he stays in touch with them and goes out and highlights adjuncts' accomplishments in this newsletter. So he always is in touch with them, asking for things that they have done, and then getting the word out there to highlight adjunct accomplishments. Adjuncts at RCC are always included and encouraged to participate in professional development opportunities, in meetings within different departments and schools, and and within our union, we are, which I'm no longer on because I'm now full-time, but our union is involved in, has a seat on many different college committees, like the President's Cabinet. And from that, they are able to have representation. They're offered adjunct representation at different committees and different offshoots, which the union will offer to other adjuncts. So those are some of the things that are done at RCC, this academy program, which we fondly call the Adjunct Academy, but it is more than just for people who want to be an adjunct. It's for people looking for full-time opportunities. Coming from the president, the support of administration and faculty has been really great for adjuncts, and helping to cultivate skills and abilities in so many different ways has been something that, again, coming from the top down, we have been excited to offer and hope to continue expanding on these experiences. So I was excited when I saw Chris put out the initial call for professional development opportunities, the uniqueness of the Academy initiative coming from the president, and then still instituting it with the current COVID culture and changes that have happened, we thought was a really great example of how we can support adjunct faculty and build from that going forward. So those are the programs at RCC that I wanted to share with you, and of course, if I can answer any questions that that people have, I'm happy to do so.
Yeah, so if anybody has questions, feel free to use your mic or put in the chat. Rachel had a comment that was directed at Eleanor, but I'm sure you could comment as well, Nancy. And she said, "As much as I enjoy my campus service and I've learned from it, I'm also wary of encouraging contingent faculty who may not be in the position to do additional work to take the path that I did. In other words, I don't want to wind up in the end making contingents feel as if they have to do service, even if such service is not required." I hope I've explained this well enough. Yeah, I think you explained that pretty well, Rachel. I mean, I think it is one of those situations where you don't want contingent faculty to feel exploited, right? So I was wondering if either of you have ideas about how you try to manage that, right? To try to provide opportunities without taking advantage.
I mean, for me, I think one of the things that adjuncts know is, just like in any volunteer organization, in any corporate organization, wherever you may be, you're going to get people who will want to get more involved, and other people who who keep their focus on what they want their focus on. And both of those things are absolutely fine and perfectly acceptable. Just like for us being on the adjunct union, because we do have two separate unions, an adjunct faculty union and a full-time union, many things people have to realize: either there's a small stipend or you are volunteering your time for the cause. So adjuncts are never forced to do anything. It is always their choice to volunteer. But I think the initiation of this honorarium to help encourage people to say your time is valuable is really, really important. And even a small stipend from $50 to $250 that comes from somewhere, I think indicates that we are valuing their time. But I definitely agree with Rachel that you can't encourage people to do things that either do not benefit their outcome or just ask them to volunteer, but make it that they're coercively being told to volunteer, and that's not a good thing to do. And I'm sure we all have that. You sit in a department meeting and somebody says, "Oh, we'd love to do course assessment or evaluate courses," and there may be adjuncts who want to get involved with that, but it is volunteer work, and you have to decide whether you want to do that. That's just been my experience. Eleanor, you might want to add something to that.
Yes, thank you, Nancy. I just want to add, the idea of adjuncts volunteering and this feeling of being exploited is real. And as I said before, we're on the cusp. Things are changing. All organizations are thinking more about professional development for their employees. And I think that, I spoke to Nancy. We were talking about the symmetry of leadership. Leadership usually is thought of as, as something that pertains only to the upper, senior administration, and not the people you know, at the bottom, so to speak, doing the work. I think leadership for adjunct faculty and leadership for senior administration, even as far as diversity training, equity, inclusion, that type of training, it relates to what we're talking about, so that there's a symmetry of leadership between the senior administration, all levels of faculty, you know, secured. At FIT, we have CCE, Certificate of Continuous Employment, which kind of gives us a feeling that we're going to be coming back every semester to teach, but it's not really that. I don't think it's really, it's not a real reality, because, you know, if classes are canceled, we don't come back. We're not, you know, we don't have a full-time position. So it's those kind of things where we want to feel that we're included by leadership. Our chairs, our provosts, our president, our VPs, everyone needs leadership development, you know, not only the adjuncts. And so that there's a symmetry of leadership. And I think that is going to change the mindset, and it's going to take a long time before we all feel like we're included and we're part of it. And we might be more inclined to volunteer. You know, the feeling is that we will not feel like we're exploited. We'll feel like we are part of this. I think an action step for us to think about is mentorship. You know, mentorship, I mentor people, and I've been mentored, and I think it's wonderful. You feel like, wow, I can do this, and I don't mind being mentored. You know, a personal relationship with someone who has so much knowledge and experience. I want to do that. You know, so like at Rockland, you know, the VPs, the provosts, they are, you know, working above and beyond to guide. And I think that is so motivating. It makes you want to volunteer. You know.
I think COVID has done some good and some not so good for all of us. But from an adjunct perspective, one of the things that I found was going remote. I was definitely working more. Without being in the classroom, there was much more work to do outside of what I would have normally done. But what it also did for a lot of adjuncts was, since we're not on campus all the time, the remote meetings, the remote professional development, the ability to log on another time and watch a session at your own, on your own time schedule, I think was really helpful for adjuncts. Prior to COVID, our professional development at RCC was mostly live on campus. They would have what they called professional development days, sometimes during the semester, sometimes at the end. They would do one at the end of May, mid-August, and then January before the start of the semester. And you had to go to campus to be involved. And an adjunct was not paid for that. And it was a commitment because, as we all know, adjuncts come from all over and they're not required to be on campus other times. Now, with a lot of these things being offered remotely, an adjunct can log on from home, and it literally is just that 1 hour. And so even if they're working at another job, now they can log into that department meeting that takes place on a Tuesday at 12:30 to find out what's going on at the department, whereas in the past they couldn't do that. So as much as we have to see what we learned from COVID and being able, I think in some ways adjuncts were able to be more included from a time perspective and a distance perspective as well.
Yes, I think you're absolutely right, Nancy. Even as far as faculty meetings and departments, where adjuncts have to travel from one end of the city or one area to another, and they just don't have the time. But the technology that we have at our hands, makes it much easier. Yeah, definitely.
We found that at a lot of these meetings, as many of you probably found also, there was higher attendance for adjuncts because they could come in and out. If they were working, they had much more flexibility than saying, I have to drive to campus and I have to be there focused the whole time. So I think attendance from the adjunct perspective has increased.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things we've learned in professional development during the pandemic is that when it's over or when
Right.
it's subsided or when it's, more manageable and we're not dealing with variants and all this, stuff, we can't sort of forget the lessons we've learned about access to programs that doing things online like this has created, right? So, I think in the future, I'd like to see sort of more blending of, face to face with opportunities like this that are more accessible and more equitable to folks who can't, like you said, make the trek to campus or attend anything face to face in person, certainly. So I'm curious about others have questions that are here. We have a few more minutes left. I'm also curious to hear if anybody would be willing to share what your campus is doing to support adjuncts. I mean, I think one of the things I appreciated about what FIT and Rockland are doing is that these programs kind of put adjuncts as, I think the worst thing you can do to adjuncts is make them feel like they're an afterthought. So I don't think any campuses deliberately teach their adjuncts poorly, treat their adjuncts poorly. I mean, that would just be shooting yourself in the foot. But I think all too often adjuncts are kind of an afterthought, right? So you take care of the needs of your full-time faculty first, and then whatever you have left over, maybe you reserve for adjuncts. And I like these programs because they are kind of explicitly for adjuncts and really kind of tailored to their needs and their circumstances. So kudos to both of your campuses for doing this. So, so does anybody have any questions, or again, would be willing to volunteer to talk about what your campus is doing? I'm going to do the uncomfortable wait. I know. I'll call on somebody. Let me see. Who I want to call on here?
I want to ask, I think it's, let's see, Cindy Rigolino. Rachel Rigolino.
Yes.
Rachel, can you tell us a little bit about your thoughts on how you feel of the administration, or how adjuncts could be more inclusive or more included in the general operations of the college to advance their leadership skills. Can you speak on that a little bit from your perspective?
Well, I am really impressed with what your campuses are doing. I wanted to say that, and I think that having something that the contingent faculty know will be valued. I think a lot of contingent faculty don't necessarily know that they can serve on some of these committees that they might be interested in. And I mean, I think that really setting up a program, I'm taking note. In fact, I want to get these slides because I really think it would be great if we started something like this. My only aside to all of this is that, I worry about work creep, but you address that, and I also think it's kind of, where a person is in their life. I've been able to do a lot of things because of my personal life and where I'm situated. So it's been very easy in a way for me to volunteer to do all this service.
Yes. Where are you, Rachel?
Oh, I'm at SUNY New Paltz, and I have to say I have a very supportive department, a very supportive dean, very supportive administration. I'm kind of the service. I do all kinds of service things I'm interested in. But not everybody is in that position, of course.
And it's great that you do that, because you need people to do that, and you must be valued, extremely valued for doing that.
Yes.
Somewhat, yeah.
Great.
It's like volunteer work. You feel valued on your own. When you put your head on the pillow at night, you've made a difference.
And you get to choose what you want to do, what you're interested in. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It gives you a sense of freedom.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. That's great.
Chilton.
Hey, good morning, and thanks for the presentation. It's been really good to hear the different perspectives. One thing I just wanted to share that we started a year ago, I think, on our campus was that we have now allowed for a track for promotion inside of Adjunct. And so if you've taught at least 4 semesters, then you can apply for what they're calling an associate adjunct position. And once you apply for that and get it, then they will give you a 2-year contract instead of a 1-year contract on our campus. So it just gives you a little bit more, known how long you'll be on campus. And so they really spelled that out. I could find the website and share it in the chat of all the stuff that you need to be able to share to be able to do that. And they have a review committee that does that. So that's been a positive thing on our campus, so that the adjuncts have really appreciated and has spelled some ways where they can do some things to be able to get to that higher appointment level.
Where are you, Chilton?
Oh, sorry, I'm SUNY Oneonta.
Oh, you're at Oneonta.
Yeah.
Great. Are you, and your position at, you're an adjunct, or what is your?
No, I'm the interim director of our Teaching Learning Technology Center. So run a lot of the professional development on our campus. And so have support adjunct faculty through that process, in addition to just a bunch of other trainings for all of our faculty on campus.
That's great. That's great news to hear that there's some, mechanism for, giving adjuncts the feeling that they're going to be there for at least what, a year or 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's terrific. That is a milestone.
Yeah.
I think what we found, and maybe what you found also, because those are the kind of similar programs, because they are selective programs that people have to apply for, even though it's not for everybody. We found that it's still a representation that the school is valuing and actually putting their money where their mouth is to do something, and not stipend based, but they're doing something to cultivate and recognize adjuncts. And you can't do everything for everybody, because it is true. There are some adjuncts who just want to teach 1 class on Sunday morning and go on to their full-time jobs. And then there are other adjuncts who will teach 3 or 4 classes during the day because they have their life gives them the ability to do that. But by offering some of these things, we just found that it represented to everyone that the president down really supported the adjunct population. And that was a good perspective for people to have.
So we're almost out of time. I just put a link in the chat to the Lumen Circles program. I know you've all probably heard about it from me before, but I just wanted to say it again, just in case you haven't heard of it. But SUNY is paying Lumen for all faculty who participate, so it's no cost to campuses, and adjuncts are eligible as long as they're teaching the semester in which they participated at a SUNY school. They're eligible. So this is a great sort of opportunity that they could take advantage of. It's all online, obviously, and asynchronous, no Zoom meetings either. So there's a webinar coming up in tomorrow, tomorrow at noon to 1, if you want to learn more about it. So the link there. But I want to thank you both. I see people are kind of filtering out to their next meetings, but thank you so much, Eleanor and Rose and Nancy. It was a good presentation to close it off. And you're welcome. And we'll be sending out a survey soon to everyone who registered for these to get your thoughts. So, thanks, everybody. Have a good rest of your semester.
Thanks.
Thank you.